Here we explore the Mech Shaman. There are a variety of decks that implement mech. Throughout the ages, you've seen Mech Mage, which is probably the most famous one, a little bit of Mech Druid, a little bit of Mech Warlock, a little bit of Mech Warrior. Mech Shaman, though, I'd say is the second most popular mech deck behind Mech Mage. At least throughout the ages. Mech Shaman is a little more aggressive, or perhaps even a lot more aggressive than Mech Mage. It has its most striking similarities, I think, to Face Hunter. It has similarities to Tempo Mage as well. In the early game, you try to clear the board with efficient cards like Rockbiter Weapon. You attempt to get a very fast start with Cogmaster or Mech Warper into a bunch of mechs, and then you try to finish them off with the big Fel Reaver, or Fire Elemental, or Dr. Boom, or Ragnaros. A fairly straightforward plan. We're just trying to play on curve, trade efficiently in the early game, and then in the mid game, and the mid game differs based on the matchup, but I'm going to generally call it turn 4. You just go face. You try to finish them off with the big cards or the Doomhammer Rockbiter. Alright, so this is pretty much exactly the hand you want to get when you're Mech Shaman. Anoyatron is in particular quite good against Warrior. You block their Fiery War Axe. Cogmaster is the best card to draw in the early game, unless you're going second and you have like Coin Mech Warper. So, really good start. I'm gonna play this in case he has Fiery War Axe. This is a very optimistic play. You could have coined the Fire War Axe. This is the part where you have to divine whether or not he has Fire War Axe. I think the pros are just so high here. He has to have exactly the Fire War Axe. This is the part where also you should keep in mind how many cards he replaced in the opening game. If he kept like more cards, I would have been more liable to keep the to play the Anoyatron first, to try to get the Fire War Axe out of the way. But he replaced most of his cards, so I was willing to take a greater chance. In this deck, you often have to take some risks. You often have to not play around Brawl, not play around some possible plays, just because you need to do that extra bit of damage. But this is still good. I got my 1 drop, 2 drop, 3 drop, 4 drop, 5 drop. And yeah, this deck is pretty much as simple as that. Things to keep in mind are that you stop worrying about board control after a point, and you just go face, and you try to keep a really good early game curve. Though in the early game, you still want to trade oftentimes. This is a very unfortunate Shredder drop. This is actually a pretty good Anoyatron Whirling Zap over Loatheb, which you don't want to play into an obvious solution. So there's a number of top decks if he, almost regardless of what happens, not win me the game here. Sometimes. Thus is the nature of Crackle. No, he'll just Armor Smith. Never mind. Oh, that's a good one though. That's a really good one. It's not lethal, but is good. Does give him a lot of armor, but still good.
Elements guide me. Elements guide me.
This deck is almost aggressive enough that hitting him in the face again is good, but he has the Death Spite. And that is a 9-3.
Fight! Count me! Everyone, get in here!
Yeah, and there you have it. Rockbiter is obviously really good with Doomhammer. You get +6 damage with it. With this deck, you're often going to be in the kind of same situation where you push in for a lot of damage and you really need like just a few more points of damage with finish. So it's a really exact deck.
Your soul shall be mine for Doomhammer.
The Whirling Zaphomatic is not that good to keep in the early game, as it is just a 3-2, but it's good enough. If the opponent happens to be handlocked, the Whirling Zaphomatic can do a lot of damage.
Death does not scare me.
You would do this, Nostum. My precious instruction. It's all going to waste.
Elements guide me.
Your deck's too weird to explain.
Stop yelling!
Alright, do I want to have my Whirling Zaphomatic or my Potted Shredder get buffed? 6/5 Potted Shredder is pretty good. But this getting buffed is obviously quite good too. And I'm going to get a mystery card.
Elements guide me.
I can fix anything!
Not too shabby. I suppose it's not strange enough. It's just a
Bingo! Yes!
control warlock deck. So normally you would think about preserving your cards, but I'm considering Earthshocking that just to get past it and then saving the Lava Burst for the end. And I think that is actually worth it here. So this is the big difference between board control and just face. It looks cleaner to Lava Burst this and perhaps send the 1-2 in there, and then perhaps things last a bit longer. But he has a control deck, and I'm assuming that he might have some kind of answer anyways. So I'd rather use the Lava Burst for the end 5. Hopefully some of these other minions, they end up doing a bit of damage. So I've got some amount of damage there. It'll be Dr. Boom into unknown amounts of damage, but on average 9.
Tazdingo! Yes!
Those boom bots kind of suck. Hoping for a healing totem, I guess? Mwah.
Elements guide me.
Stop yelling!
I'm going to actually take a wild guess that... No, actually I have no idea. Okay, I will take a wild guess. He's playing the Nozdormu deck.
Guide me. Victory or death for Doomhammer.
As usual, keep the early game stuff. Hope to get 2 more early game cards. Didn't. That's too bad.
Greetings. Greetings, friend.
In this deck, you're really not wanting to totem up anytime in the early game. But sometimes you have no choice. It just means you have a weak hand. And you're more likely to lose.
Greetings, friend.
The deck is relatively straightforward, I suppose, in the early game. And thus I do encourage it to some extent for... For it is fairly straightforward. You play on curve, and at some point in the game, I think this is the part where it's kind of the skill tester. You switch from controlling the board into face. Do it too soon, too early, and you lose out on your board presence. Too late, and you miss out on some cards. That card is really important. I'll deny him all the cards, I guess. At this point, we are in all-out face mode. Wapow, wapow. And then sometimes you have to wonder whether or not a card like Emperor Thaurissan is worth it enough to kill. In this case, it looks like this game is going to conclude in the next turn. So you make a tough call not to actually kill a very threatening card, and you go face. Even if Emperor Thaurissan gets off another turn, like it looks like the game is concluding in 1 to 2 turns. So at some point you give up any amount of board control and you just try to cash in whatever damage you can on the face. Power Mace, Lava Burst, it's going to be 8 damage, which is not quite enough to kill him. But there's Boom Bots, there's my top deck, there's a Whirling Blades for maybe +1, and maybe something from my board will survive. It's looking like something from my board will survive. In fact, if he does the trade, then it means I got in 6 free damage. So, with a lot of more aggressive, mid-rangey type of decks, this is not a mid-range deck. I'd say this is more of a rush deck. But with a lot of mid-rangey type of decks, and almost all rush decks, one big part of the game is figuring out when to give up trying to control the board and just hit face. Rusty Horn, oh man. Okay, so if I get really lucky, I'll win. I have to think about whether Whirling Bladesing first is better. I think it's worse. Okay, so I need a 4 to win right now. Well, alright, good job. And that is how you play Mech Shaman.